Chapter 23. Tesco grunted through his nostrils as he glided back to his lair. Grain. Of all the things his humans could have asked for, he asked for grain. Grain! As if something so ubiquitous couldn't easily be bought with a bit of gold, not even enough to put a dent in his hoard. Perhaps he should be glad to get off so lightly, but to repay the human for saving his life with something so ordinary, so easily obtained, cheapened the gravity of the act, at least in Tesco's mind. He alighted in his cave on a mountain nestled among the foothills of the Triscolo range. Shrugging the pack of grain off his back, he counted his spoils. 10 sacks ought to do it. Humans didn't eat much, and these sacks were dragon-sized, so the amount of grain should last Sevrin and his lot through several winters. Certainly longer than a dragon would with a similar amount. Not that dragons ate much grain. They were mostly carnivores. However, back in the land when Tesco had hatched, some of the more industrious dragons grew fields of grain to feed the herds of various beasts they kept. It was why Tesco had gone after the sheep, which had gotten him into this mess into the first place. He wanted to start a herd of his own. How was he to know it belonged to a bunch of humans? Tesco had no clue they had the intelligence to herd beasts. What a disaster it all turned out to be, if it hadn't been for his human. Tesco gazed out of his cave toward the city where the human's field lay. What an odd fellow the human was, honorable to a fault. He wouldn't even reach out to grasp what he desired because it was dishonest and deceitful and degrading to the princess. Surely he was one of the most noblest creatures Tesco had ever met. I wish I could get him his princess, but he's right. Tesco sunk to the ground. It would never cross my mind to trick a dragoness into being my mate. I'd have to prove to her my power and might and proficiency in collecting gold. The human's mother is correct. The princess needs to see what a noble creature he is. But how can she when they never see each other? He lay his head upon his paws. I wonder, could I arrange a meeting? Oh yes, of course. I'll invite the lady to tea, under the pretense of apologizing to her for the destruction and distress I caused. Everyone loves tea, and who would resist tea with a dragon? He chuckled to himself. I'll invite the human as well. The two will meet, have a talk, their pheromones will get into each other's brains, and they'll be nesting and brooding together in no time. I should have thought of this first. Oh, wait till the human hears about this. He scrabbled out of his cave and took to the sky. Flying over the foothills and meadows, his mind concocted the perfect scenario for tea, crafting a proper speech to invite the princess, and fantasizing about how pleased the human would be with his new plan. No deception, no trickery. Oh, but he should make it a surprise. The human would jump out of his skin with delight when he walked into the cave and saw his princess waiting to have tea. Yes, this would be Oh. Tesco pulled up as he spotted 4 knights on horseback, complete with their squires, pages, and heralds, riding out in glorious procession, wearing those useless metal scales humans love so much. Oh dear, I suppose their king is finally taking my threats seriously. He rolled his eyes. The timing couldn't be worse. Though I suppose if I'm going to invite the princess, I'll have to make peace with them. Wheeling around, he alighted on the field before them. He raised a paw in greeting. Good morning, gentlemen. Hey! One of the knights shot an arrow at him. It embedded itself between 2 of the scales on his paw. It didn't hurt, couldn't penetrate to his flesh underneath, but... Now then! Tesco reeled backwards, plucking the arrow from between his scales. Stop it! There's no need for... Do not let those terrible roars unsettle you, my brothers, said one knight, one with golden hair underneath his helm. Charge him like we planned. The other 3 knights yelled and rushed at Tesco, each wielding pointed sticks. This is the rudest behavior I've ever encountered, Tesco snorted. He would never be able to reason with them until he proved his superior strength. Launching himself to the air, he spewed fire in front of the knights' horses, cutting them off from the rest of their entourage. The horses reared and screamed and bucked at the presence of fire. As the knight tried to control them, Tesco swiped at them with his tail. They tumbled off their mounts and clattered to the ground. Freed from the will of their riders, the horses wisely galloped to the safety of the city walls. Tesco turned to face the knights and roared as loudly as he could. If he could make them cower into submission, perhaps they'd be more inclined to listen. It worked, sort of. 3 knights stood, trembling so hard the artificial scales rattled, and drew their swords to face Tesco. Well then, Tesco stood straight. Now that I have your attention." One of them found his courage. With a yell that couldn't have inspired fear in a rat, he charged at Tesco and hacked at his front leg. The other two followed suit. One tried to jump and stab his heart, and the other darted underneath to stab his belly. Tesco rolled his eyes at their bravery and idiocy. All their attempts to stab him bounced off his natural armor. Unlike the ridiculous metal counterfeits, his scales were the real deal. Nothing could penetrate them. These knights were wasting their time and energy by pain lanced through his back leg. Tesco spun around with a snarl. One of the knights had embedded his sword into Tesco's wounded leg. The human grinned like an idiot. "First blood!" Blind with rage and pain, Tesco snatched the human in his teeth and flung him against the city walls. The human slammed against it with a clang. The other two knights brandished their swords. Tesco caught one in his teeth and opened his mouth to chomp down. "No, no!" the knight screamed. "Lord, have mercy on me!" Tesco halted mid-chomp. The poor little human. Tesco couldn't kill him. After all, he had started all this with his destroying the city nonsense. The knight was only trying to protect his home from a perceived menace. "Sir Galloway!" the other knight called to the blond one. "Now!" "I'm coming, my good man!" The fourth knight, the one who had called them to charge, rode forward into the fray. Tesco flung the knight in his mouth at the galloping blond knight. The one crashed into the other, and both tumbled over the grass. That done, Tesco took to the sky. With an injured leg as an obvious weakness, he couldn't drop in on the princess. He'd have to take appropriate measures to protect himself. "I seem to have jumped ahead a bit," Tesco said to himself as he flew. "It's only been a day since the last time I attacked the city. I'll leave them be, give them a chance to calm down while I arrange tea. Then I shall come in and invite the princess." He glanced out at the knights gathering themselves to return to the city. "Though if those humans are any indication, I doubt it will be easy for me to get in contact with her."